Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every bank in the world has shut down overnight. No online banking, no ATMs, no credit cards, no mobile payments, and no access to savings accounts. Millions of people would suddenly be unable to withdraw money, pay bills, or access their financial records. The entire global financial system would freeze in an instant. At first, confusion would spread faster than panic. People would try to check their accounts, only to find nothing working. Shops would be unable to process card payments. Businesses would not be able to pay employees. Governments would struggle to manage public funds. The world would quickly realize how deeply dependent modern life is on banking systems. Banks are not just buildings, they are the backbone of global trust, money flow, and economic stability. Without them, the concept of money itself would suddenly feel uncertain. If all banks shut down tomorrow, the world would face one of the most extreme financial disruptions in human history, forcing society into immediate crisis and adaptation. Let's watch. 1. Cash flow would freeze instantly. The first and most immediate impact of a global bank shutdown would be the freezing of all cash flow. People would suddenly lose access to their savings, salaries, and financial accounts. ATMs would stop working. Online banking systems would shut down, and debit or credit cards would become useless. Businesses would be unable to withdraw operating cash or pay suppliers. Employees would not receive wages, leaving millions without income overnight. Even wealthy individuals would find themselves unable to access digital assets stored in bank accounts. Physical cash would quickly become the only usable form of money. However, the supply of physical currency is limited compared to digital money stored in banks. This would create immediate shortages of usable cash in many regions. Panic would begin to spread as people realize they cannot access their own money. Long queues might form outside banks even if they are closed, as people attempt to understand the situation. 2. Global economy would enter shock mode. Modern economies are built entirely on banking systems. From small businesses to multinational corporations, every financial transaction depends on banks. If they all shut down, the global economy would enter immediate shock. Stock markets would likely crash or suspend trading entirely. Companies would lose access to capital, credit lines, and investment funds. International trade would halt as payment systems collapse. Businesses would be unable to purchase supplies, pay employees, or receive revenue through digital systems. Entire industries such as retail, manufacturing, logistics, and services would slow down or stop completely. Governments would also struggle to manage national budgets, taxes, and public spending. 3. Businesses and jobs would collapse rapidly. Businesses rely on banks for almost everything: payroll, payments, loans, investments, and daily transactions. Without banking systems, most companies would struggle to survive even a few days. Small businesses would be hit the hardest. Many operate with limited cash reserves and depend on daily transactions to survive. Without access to payments or savings, many would be forced to close immediately. Large corporations would also suffer, though they might survive slightly longer due to internal reserves. However, without banking systems, even large companies would struggle to move money between branches, countries, or departments. Employees would stop receiving salaries, leading to immediate financial stress for millions of households. Without income, people would reduce spending, further collapsing business activity. Unemployment would rise rapidly as companies shut down or suspend operations. Entire sectors such as online services, retail chains, and finance-related industries would be paralyzed. 4. Daily life would become extremely difficult. Modern daily life is heavily dependent on banking systems, even for simple activities. Without banks, everyday routines would change drastically. Shopping would become difficult because card payments and digital wallets would stop working. People would need to rely only on cash, which would become scarce quickly. Rent, utility bills, and subscriptions would become impossible to pay through normal systems. Landlords and service providers would also struggle to receive payments. Travel would be disrupted, as booking systems for flights, hotels, and transport rely on banking networks. Even fuel stations in many areas would face payment issues. Online shopping would completely stop. 5. Governments would struggle to maintain control. Governments rely heavily on banking systems to manage national economies. Taxes, salaries, public services, and welfare programs are all processed through financial institutions. Without banks, governments would lose access to critical financial infrastructure. Paying public employees, funding infrastructure projects, and managing national budgets would become extremely difficult. Tax collection systems would collapse, reducing government revenue instantly. This would limit the ability of governments to respond to the crisis effectively. Emergency response systems might still function temporarily, but long-term planning would become nearly impossible without financial coordination. 6. People would return to cash and barter systems. If banking systems remain shut down for an extended period, society would gradually shift toward cash-based and even barter-based economies. Physical money would become extremely valuable, but also scarce. People who have cash reserves would have a temporary advantage, while others would struggle to access basic goods. In some regions, barter systems could re-emerge, where goods and services are exchanged directly without money. For example, food might be traded for fuel, or labor exchanged for essential supplies. Local economies would become more important than global trade. Communities might rely on trust-based exchanges and informal financial systems. However, cash alone cannot support modern global trade. It lacks scalability and security for large transactions. This would severely limit economic growth and mobility. 7. Long-term transformation of the financial system. If all banks shut down permanently, the world would eventually rebuild its financial systems, but they would look very different from today. New systems might emerge based on decentralized finance, local banking networks, or government-controlled digital currencies. Trust in centralized banking institutions could be permanently damaged. Financial technology would likely evolve rapidly in response to the crisis. People might demand more transparent, secure, and independent systems of managing money. However, rebuilding global financial trust would take years or even decades. International trade, investment, and economic cooperation would need to be re-established from the ground up. The crisis could also lead to stricter regulations and stronger financial safeguards in the future. Outro. If all banks shut down tomorrow, the world would experience one of the most severe financial disruptions in modern history. Cash flow would freeze instantly, businesses would collapse, jobs would disappear, and governments would struggle to maintain stability. Daily life would become chaotic as people lose access to savings, payments, and basic financial systems. In the short term, panic and confusion would dominate. In the long term, society would be forced to rebuild financial systems from the ground up, likely shifting toward cash-based, decentralized, or alternative economic models. Trust in traditional banking would be deeply shaken, and global finance would never fully return to its previous structure. Despite the chaos, humanity would adapt, as it always has during major crises. New systems would emerge, and economies would slowly recover. However, the world after such an event would be fundamentally different, slower, more localized, and far more cautious about financial dependence. The sudden disappearance of banks would reveal one powerful truth: modern civilization is built not just on money, but on trust in systems that most people never see until they stop working. Let us know in the comments what you think about the What If All Banks Shut Down tomorrow, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more captivating content on our YouTube channel.